talking about private security, yes, we need and expect them to be everywhere, because even parking can become a danger zone. You see, I told you they have layered parkings behind the hotel. So you can come in this way, go and park, and get out from behind the hotel with the rest of the buildings, or you can park somewhere here, drive back and use the same entrance as an exit. So if you are talking about putting police all over the place, it can be very expensive. But yes, because it's a complex area, it is important that they have enough guard personnel, either for purposes of deterrence or raising the alarm. It is important, because when you invest in something like this, you also want people to have confidence that when I'm there, I'm safe and secure. So I don't think the issue of expenses in terms of security was an element on what we are seeing. I think this was just a planned attack. Our guards are not armed, and therefore the only people who could counter these fellows are our police officers.
Well, looking at other, shopping complexes, the village market closed immediately after this attack, or temporarily, obviously for the security reasons, and so other malls also did close. I mean, someone can argue it's being reactive, but it's also taking precaution. But moving forward, Kenyans will wake up in the morning after looking at these kinds of pictures, and we do expect more coming from the CCTV cameras. What next? What do we do?
I think they're just playing safe. But I don't think Al-Shabaab has the capacity for multi-pronged attacks. They don't have the capacity to plan for the hub, to plan for Two Rivers, to plan for Westgate, to plan for this. They don't have that capacity. Because this ni wale wa kujitolea kimuhanga. And there are not many. So I think the idea is pick one target that has a major impact on the international scene, deal with it, take some time, reorganize again. Because again, the chances of you planning so many, the possibility of you being found out quickly is higher than when you're planning for one. So I don't think they have the capacity for attacks.
Again, for the purposes of just having the simple understanding of how this area is, from the main road, the Riverside Drive, coming into the Dusit complex, there's a barrier we are seeing there on our screen. I mean, it's a simple barrier. Even a motorbike can just, break through that barrier.
No, but the first one is a very strong barrier.
So the first barrier is
where
a very
where
strong
guardsman is very strong. It's steel.
What exactly is there?
It's steel. You know this barrier with the two whatever this side, but it's a very heavy barrier. So for you even to drive through, I think to break it, you must be with a lot of force. So that is a strong barrier. But after that, there's no barrier. It's just that one you are seeing for the ticketing. But the main one is far outside what you are seeing here.
Let's talk about the choice of weapons that they're using.
AK-47.
It's become symbolic of terrorism, unfortunately, the AK-47s. Why, why do they choose this kind of weapons? And also, there are different types of grenades, but there's a specific type of grenade that they're fond of using. Is it because they're readily available in Somalia or in the black market?
It depends where they acquire the grenades. But the AK-47, there are several benefits. Look at our GSU here. Just turn if you have the capacity. Look at that G3. It looks a heavy weapon, isn't it?
It is a heavy weapon.
It's a heavy weapon. But when you look at that thing that fellow is holding, it is so light that they prefer those ones because they are light to carry. You can break it easily, put it somewhere, fix it back very quickly. And what do we say about AK-47? Okay, I've forgotten most of those things. But the fact that it is light, it does not jam easily. You understand what I mean by jamming?
Yes, I do.
It doesn't jam easily, and it can operate for a long time. Makes it a choice weapon for terrorists. It's very light. It has more weapons, more bullets. It is easy to fold it and run around with it, as opposed to the G3 or M18 or M25, which are very heavy weapons from the West. So I think that's why it's a choice weapon for terrorists, because it's light and ammunition is easily available in the market.
What about the grenades?
Wherever they are buying them, that is where we need to know, because that means it's easy to get them where they're getting those types of grenades.
Because
Black market, of course.
Because I've talked to some security experts who said that type,
Yes.
the Russian type, is a very old type of
Yes,
grenade,
yes.
but it's still available in the markets.
Yeah.
Are they
Easy
still
to
being
get.
Easy to get?
Easy to get.
Is
Don't
it-
forget, when Russia was the Soviet Union, several countries were producing weapons on behalf of the bigger Soviet Union.
Yes.
Ukraine was known to be for the ballistic missiles, intercontinental. It was known for that. It was the best. Czech Republic, Hungary, they used to produce several types of weapons. So when they broke off, some of them decided to maintain what they had, some of them decided to modify. And if they had stocks that were now obsolete in terms of their usage in that country, they end up in the black market. And between the time the Soviet Union collapsed and the time we saw order in Eastern Europe, there was a lot of black market merchandise in terms of weapons and ammunition. I think that's why it is easy to get them now, but they're no longer produced.
But you look at the African continents, the rebels from West Africa, you look at Boko Haram, the choice of weapons they're using, same weapon.
True.
But the terrorism that America, for example, experiences, they're using a different type of weapon again.
Are they local terrorists or international terrorists?
Well, they have a different language and wordings around who they call a terrorist and who they call a gunman, someone with a psychological issue, as they put it. But are you then seeing an end to this? Because you would assume they're still in mass production.
AK are still in mass production because it's a weapon for Russia. It's still a weapon for Ukraine. It's still a weapon for some countries in the former East. It's still a weapon in some Asian countries. Even in Africa, we have countries using AK. So it is still in production. That's why it is easily available.
Unfortunately, you can't help but notice, visually, when you look at, you refer to the picture that we've been running on our bumper of local police officers with the long G3 heavy rifles. We're still stuck to that. But the minute you see the wrecker squad coming in with their guns, it gives you a different feeling.
Yes.
These are serious people.
Characters, either AK, Uzi submachine gun, foldable, easy to carry, easy to use because of the fluidity of the operation.
So then, speaking of operations, are we as a country investing in weaponry?
I think they are. I think they are.
We may never know the numbers, we may never know the types, but you're quite confident
I
that
watched
we are there.
the other day the Chief of Defense Staff talking to our soldiers in Somalia, and he said we have invested heavily in new weapons and equipment. I think they are.
Looking at these images again, back to these images, do you think this plays into the psyche of the terrorism narrative coming from, well, they've not said it's Al-Shabaab, though we do know it's Al-Shabaab who've claimed responsibility, but the CS has chosen to call them a terrorist element.
Yes.
I mean, does this play into their psyche? Or is this a disadvantage to them?
I don't think they want to be seen.
They
That
don't.
is a fact. But the fact that they are being exposed, I think is a disadvantage to them. They will be happy if they are not seen, and that's why they like driving to the target, disembark, and quickly start causing chaos. But you see, a place like Dusit, the way we are saying, is so complex that you cannot deal with issues of CCTV cameras. So I think when they go in, they have already made a choice. We are going here to do our job. We know there are several disadvantages, but we have to achieve what we want. But no terrorist wants to be seen the first, because they can survive. There are those who survive, and they still go back and continue causing havoc in the world. So I don't think it plays to the psyche that we are macho and we are doing this. No, I don't think so.
So you think they prefer operating covertly?
Yes, yes. This is a disadvantage to them.
So there's a very big disadvantage to them.
Yes.
But then again, as a country, the challenge we've also faced is biometrics. If indeed there's still hold up there, we don't know that yet. But assuming again that they were not working alone, and all these ones disappeared, like we were here getting reports that there's a probability that once the police moved in and everyone was leaving, it's very easy to drop your vest, drop the gun, and just walk in with everybody else.
Not even that. You know, Dennis, what we are discussing is about what we see in the front. Even what I'm explaining to you, I don't know the compound behind the complexes. And because this is a place they planned and surveyed for a long time, probably there are places they knew that once they do this, they can use this exit and disappear. So I think we wait and hear what we are going to be given as stories of what has happened.
The way they've been operating,
Yes.
the last time I was in Kulbio, I remember after the attack, one of the things that Captain there mentioned was the fact that they have changed their modus operandi, in the sense that they're now getting young boys from inside Somalia, forcing them to join their outfit, and they use them as the foot soldiers when they storm into a camp
Barracks,
or into the barracks or in a place like this one. And then the real Al-Shabaab are way at the back. They have these different layers. They're those ones who go to collect the bodies to make sure they're never found. Are you seeing this working for them, or
No.
they?
I think when you look at these Dennis, these are seasoned. Just look even at their ages. These are not young people. So I think in terms of what you are saying, yes, that is mounting operations against static targets that are able to fight back. You use people who can be used as collateral as you move closer to your target. But I think for somebody to operate in something like this, it must be a seasoned operative, so that they're in charge of their faculties, they're in charge of what they are doing, they understand what they are doing, and they go in knowing that we shall not come back. If you force a kid the way we used to see in Afghanistan and Pakistan, some children will go and change their minds. So I think even with the ages that we are seeing with these fellows, these are not young people. These are senior operatives wherever they are coming from.
They probably could be in their 30s. It's really hard to tell, but from the face of
like
this
one,
fellow, for example.
He's over 30, this one. He's not young. So these are people, if they joined Al-Shabaab at 18 or 20, these are people who have done service for terrorists. But on this kind of attacks, unless it's a suicide terrorist, then you can use children. But this one that you come to fight, either extricate yourself or die, it must be somebody who understands the operations.
How they've been playing out the ideology, is it making it difficult, because it's also hard to tell whether this is a Kenyan Somali or these are Somali. Again, you can't be sure whether these are Swahili-speaking men or they have just come straight from Somalia. How do they drive in? If they were driving around with vehicles that were loaded with explosives and they have this kind of weapons and magazines, I mean,
These are people who know the place.
Yes.
So it's likely they're both Somalis, Somali Kenyans, because now we can use the word Somali because we've seen pictures.
Yes.
So it is very likely that they have both in and out. Those who have left here, gone there, joined these people, and those who are operating from there, joining our people who have joined them to come and do attacks here. But I think I've been told, I'm not very sure, that the accent of a Somali from Somalia is different from the accent of a Somali from Kenya. So it's very easy for those who know to tell you this is a guy from or a lady from Somalia and this is a Kenyan Somali.
Well, we are still, following up what's been happening at the Dusit complex. There's so much activity that has gone on across the day. The statements that have come through from the Police Inspector General Joseph Boynet, and finally we heard moments ago from the Interior Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i mentioning quite a number of things there, and like you had predicted, giving the position that they're holding, but also you made reference to the President being fully well aware of what's happening, and you'd mentioned that you would expect the President perhaps to address the nation at some point. When is the right time to do this?
I think when they are sure that the operation is beyond any doubts, that when the Commander-in-Chief speaks, he speaks of a position that they are sure nothing untoward can happen after they speak to the nation.
So we've learned from what we experienced at Westgate when the President addressed the nation
very quickly.
Yeah,
then things went haywire. Then they had to start patching up. So I think at that moment when the Minister and the Inspector General's team feel that the operation is beyond breaking down, then that is when you will probably see the President addressing the nation. Because in all likelihood, the President must address the nation on this.
What is the importance of that?
It's a symbol of unity, it's a symbol of authority, it's a symbol of togetherness. So when he speaks, Kenya is speaking.
Looking at his statement, Fred Matiang'i's statement,
Yes.
we know him to speak off the cuff quite a
Yeah.
lot. But on this one, you noticed is stuck to the script,
And-
not questions.
Yes.
Do you think it's following an order or it's good manners, like you had said earlier?
No, this is what we call messaging. You know, there's a frame in communication called messaging. You want to send out the message you've agreed you want to send out. Don't go outside it. Don't allow for questions. Send it out. Let Kenyans digest. Then you'll come with another one.
What is missing?
It's still a sign of very good organization, like I was saying, that these are things are just falling in place so well that you notice this is good planning, this is a good operation, and they are following the script on how to manage this kind of situations.
Looking at the statements, there are quite a number of things that we're going to be looking at, including what was missing in the statements is an address perhaps to the families of those who have died, though we have not been given the correct number or the figures. We don't have the figures yet.
Yes.
But at least so far we know that those who have been injured, we've not seen a message going out to those who have been injured or to the families of those who have been affected. Do you think that is an omission?
No, they've given a general statement that they condole, they wish quick recovery, which is a standard statement.
Okay.
But I think going to individuals, they want to be so sure that by the time they send out these things, it will not be like what we saw from El Ade. Soldiers are being brought in, their relatives are not being told. Then we start hearing stories. So I think the Inspector General gave a very generalized statement of condoling with those and wishing them quick recovery. But I think, like I said earlier, we're also hoping, because they already know the numbers.
They already know the numbers.
We are hoping that what they have created a system where they're getting to the relatives quietly before they come to the Kenyan people.
Well, the conversation continues here in the studio, but I want to take you over to Seth Olale, who is at the Dusit complex, to give us an update of what's happening there. Seth, give us details of where you are exactly, because it's a huge complex, as we understand so far, and tell us what's happening where you are.
Well, there's little information coming out from where the operation is still underway, but we have had a statement, or rather a witness account, the version from Ruben Kimani, who was actually operates here at the Dusit. He operates, he's in charge of security, and actually he was the one that had the access to the emergency exits. And according to his version, because about an hour ago he was able to come, and before he entered the ambulance to be taken to Avenue Hospital, he managed to speak to the media, and what he said was that he had the access to the emergency exits. He managed to actually evacuate at least 4 persons, but unfortunately he lost. Actually, he saw 3 persons passing away, and he confirmed that they passed from gunshot wounds. They passed away from gunshot wounds, and the only way he could save himself, according to his account, is that he was able just to lie, or rather collect pile of some bodies and put on top of his, and then assume, or rather pretend, to be completely dead. And indeed, he also told us that he's a little bit concerned for some of his colleagues, which he say that have been trapped at the basement ground that is just next to the swimming pool, and this is at the Dusit Hotel. And those were speculations about, because earlier on, about 25 minutes ago, we saw at least 3 Red Cross recovery vehicles, amid speculations that perhaps maybe, just maybe, they would be ferrying bodies to an unknown destination. And we also had information that the number of casualties, that in particular those 3 recovery Red Cross vehicles, could number between 8 to 10, and this is according to a source right within the Kenya Red Cross. And also what we know is that at least for an hour or so there has been utter silence here in the dark, just along Riverside Drive. We haven't had any more explosions, or rather gunshots, as we had earlier on. And so maybe just to symbolize that maybe it's now a matter of recovery efforts now going on, but also we've had information that we have some persons that are still inside at least two buildings just near the Dusuit Hotel. And because we are told that in one of those offices, which houses the Commission of Revenue Allocation on second floor, we have been told that there are persons that are communicating with relatives outside, and the last communications was at around 10:30 p.m. So that is just tells you that still there is activity in the nearby buildings. And also we had some information that at least in one of the buildings, that is the 14th Hanover building, we are told that up to 6th floor it has been successfully secured, or rather everyone has been successfully evacuated. But what is not clear is whether the adjacent building, that is the Dusit and the Grosvenor buildings, we are being informed that the operations there for recovery is still underway and it is not complete. And so those are just some of the updates that we've had so far. No one has come out actually from the operation area just to come and address the media, just to give a briefing of what is taking place. But we are told, we're meant to understand that, of course, the CS Interior, Fred Matiang'i, has given a briefing of what is just happening here. But from here along the River Drive Avenue, it is still silent, no much of activity, at least from where we are. What is just, or rather who the people that just behind me, or rather the people who are just around me, the press, both local and foreign press that have mingled, or rather have just arrived, have been here since this particular incident took place. And so of course we'll be giving you much more update in regards to what happens, and as soon as they happen, of course we'll keep all our viewers updated.
Well, thank you very much, Seth Olale, there at the 14 Riverside area. Well, the media is not allowed to go beyond the cordoned area because it's still an operation area, still being secured. And from what Seth has been able to gather there, he says that there's still some activity going on there. The evacuation seems not to be completed, and there are people still texting and talking to friends and relatives in the adjacent buildings. He specifically mentioned two buildings, that the people are still there, whether they're still waiting to be evacuated, because we also understand that there are people who are scared of coming out. So we'll continue monitoring this situation, and Seth is there, Ken is also there, and we also have our other reporters there monitoring the situation. But back to Simi, as we wrap this up, what is coming out here is that, you know, there are people who are still in the buildings.
Yes.
They're texting relatives, talking to their friends. Doesn't seem like this is over, in terms of over. We expect this to go until morning.
That's why I told you I wanted to be semantic in this. So when you say you're in control, it's different from being in charge. Yes, they've controlled the situation, but the thing is still on until when they are sure they have taken charge of everything, then they can say the thing is over. So I think we also need to understand that this thing took place fairly late in the afternoon. If it was early in the morning, maybe you could say it's been wrapped up. But because of the darkness and whatever, let's give them time. We see what they will tell us by tomorrow around 10. I just hope, and I want to repeat it, that people have been made to have the ability to contact their relatives, their loved ones, their friends, so that wherever people are, they know our people are okay. If by any chance that those who have lost their lives, I'm praying and hoping that the system has put in place some mechanism to get in touch with their relatives and loved ones, even as they don't tell the public exactly what took place.
What took place?
Yes.
I mean, as we wind up, why the GSU commander in charge of this operation? I mean, why, in terms of looking at the whole structure and having one centralized command structure, why the GSU?
One, this is a police operation. Two, this is an operation that is beyond normal policing duties. So therefore you bring in the Reke Squad, which is a paramilitary unit. When you bring the Reke Squad and you add in the specialized forces, also within the Reke Squad or something different, it must go under some police commander. Now, who understands better operations of the Reke Squad and the GSU than the commandant himself? So you give it to him, and anybody else who comes works under that framework.
Is this rotational?
The commander is appointed by the IG. It doesn't have to
No, in terms of these operations.
Yes.
I mean, if something else happens again tomorrow, are we going to see
No.
another
He's
person
in charge of this operation until it's over. If we get another problem, God forbid, the IG might decide to appoint another commander of the operation. Doesn't have to be this guy. But the commander of this kind of operations is appointed by the IG. If it is the military, then the Army commander appoints, the Air Force commander appoints, or the Navy commander appoints to be in charge of that specific operation.
Speaking of military, this is my last question as we wind this up. Is it time for KDF to leave Somalia?
It's unfortunate KDF is not Somalia on his own. I think this is what Kenyans refuse to accept. KDF is now under AMISOM. And KDF operates under the framework and the program of AMISOM. If KDF pulled out of Somalia today, it will be doing that as a unilateral decision against the wishes of the international community. So there's nothing we can do. Once we rehatted ourselves into AMISOM, we go by that program. And even if it gets to a point where AMISOM decides to pull out and Kenya still feels we still have a problem around our borders, and it decides to have some element of security along the border, that will be a decision made by the Kenya government. But right now, there's no way Kenya can pull out because it is part and parcel of AMISOM forces framework.
Do you then mean, even though we experience the highest casualty rate
Yes.
compared to the other nations
Yes.
in the AMISOM, we are still stuck
We are with
bound by that?
AMISOM unless Kenya as a country decides to pull out unilaterally by itself. That's what it means. Then it will be an individual state decision, and it might have serious repercussions in terms of our relationship with AU, in terms of our relationship with the region, in terms of our relationship with the international community. So it's not an easy thing the way Kenyans are talking about pulling out Somalia. Once we entered into AMISOM, we lost the capacity to make decisions of pulling out or staying. So we follow the framework of AMISOM, and they said by 2020, they want to see if they can start pulling out. They have asked Burundi to pull out, I think, 1 battalion. They are refusing because they make a lot of money. But I think AMISOM has a framework and a program, and that is what Kenya follows, because we are no longer there as a country. We are there as a contributing country to AMISOM forces.
But there's also been an argument, and I remember having this discussion with the Jubaland president.
Yes.
And he mentioned this to me and said that in Somalia, the idea of imagining that AMISOM is pulling out will create an avenue for these terrorist elements to sprout, and therefore it's literally not an option. So then do we even think of a timeline? Because as the situation in Somalia remains as it is, we'll forever be in Somalia.
Yes, but you see, just like you, I want to tell you, how many years has UN been in Congo? 17, 18 years?
Almost 2 decades.
Yes. So if Somalia will never stabilize, and it has an impact on the stability of other regional countries, then we shall forever be in Somalia. It's not about what Somalis think or want. It's about regional stability. It's about international stability. You move, you create a base for Al-Qaeda, the world will not allow that. So I think sometimes they're in a catch-22 situation. They want everybody to leave, but at the same time, you are not an island. That is what they are facing now. So Kenya cannot just walk away. It must follow what AU says, and it must abide by the program of African Union.
Well, thank you very much, Captain Simiyu for your time. We've had a very deep conversation around the situation at the Dusit complex. It was a pleasure hosting you. Hoping to see you again. You go catch some sleep.
Yes.
Most likely tomorrow we'll be back again looking at all the other elements and the scope as it changes.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much. But we are going to continue giving you back-to-back coverage of what happened. And our reporters are obviously standing by at the different hospitals and waiting to give us reports, as we also wait to hear from the Cabinet Secretary for the Interior and National Coordination, Fred Matiang'i, who said that they will be addressing again the press whenever they get any further details. But lastly, to just wrap, what he mentioned is that they're in the final stages of mopping the entire area. From what we gathered from our reporter who is there, Seth Olale, is that there is evacuation still going on. So it's still a story that is still developing. So Olive, back to you.
As you said, Dennis, we heard from the Interior CS, Fred Matiang'i, who had indicated that they have secured all the buildings in the complex. But what we know, according to a reporter on the ground, Seth Olale, is that they're yet to complete those operations. He did identify one of the buildings, and that is the Gross Vena building. Although the